But in the end, this is still a political process, and someone or some group will not be totally satisfied with the outcome. That's just the way the system's set up.
When you compare him to his predecessor, he's overperformed in the sense that he doesn't go out on a regular basis and say, here's what's happening today. Here's my tweet, here's my list of things that I'm working on, and those sorts of things. He's been much quieter than President Trump was in that regard. And if you look at some of the larger things that he wanted to try to get accomplished, of course, the top of that list is making sure he's got enough COVID vaccinations going into arms across the country, and he's been doing well on that front. He's also been able to talk about getting the $1,400 into the pockets of Americans to get up to the $2,000 mark he was talking about towards the end of last year. So he's done some big things. But what he's not been able to do at this point, I think, is set the expectation for what a compromise package is going to look like. Because you have to assume that Joe Manchin and some of the other moderates in that Democratic, very, very narrow Democratic moderate wing are going to want to see some paring down of these proposals. And what is President Biden prepared to compromise on to try to maybe meet even some moderate Republicans like Mitt Romney halfway? And does Biden still get to be able to claim credit in the end for whatever ends up happening in terms of a compromise? If you were to see Ryan win against these kind of headwinds the Democratic Party's facing with all the economic and inflationary issues going on, I think you're looking at two things. One, Ryan did run a good campaign, that's true, but Vance was a weaker candidate and you had the abortion issue that was in play. I don't think we can read tea leaves and say, therefore in 2024, the Democrats have to run a national Tim Ryan campaign to hang on to the presidency. Do not adjust the color on your television sets, folks. This is the state of Ohio, and these are counties that you're used to seeing show up red on election night, meaning that they vote for Republican candidates. In this particular case, as we said, scrambling all expectations, and now you're seeing blue filling in not just the major metros around Ohio, but also these rural counties. And we can take a look at a few right now. We'll give a quick look here at Lake, which is just to the northeast of Cuyahoga and the Cleveland area. And you're seeing, even this is as a Republican-leaning county, a split 70-30 essentially, with just under 25% of the vote in, and that's 70% for no. That's something that, again, if you're mapping this on to how things usually go with partisan votes, this is counter to the way this county usually ends up voting in elections.
Great to be here, Curtis. Thanks. And throughout this program, we'll talk about how trauma-informed care can help providers and patients. We'll also focus on the influence of community programs, as well as some of the creative ways that folks across Ohio are making a difference.
Legalized abortion. The issue spikes emotion like no other. For some, it's a matter of life and death. For others, freedom and control over life choices. With the U.S. Supreme Court overturning its landmark abortion rights case, Roe v. Wade, the nation and Ohio grapple anew with the raw realities of regulating reproduction. And while historically divisive, abortion is also as old as the human race. In fact, spontaneous abortions, or what we commonly call miscarriages, account for over a quarter of all U.S. pregnancies, and that's with today's medical advancements. Yet it's elective abortion, procedures to end a pregnancy, raising political ire. But long before the modern Republican and Democratic parties, elective abortion, though not a celebrated right, was a rather uncontroversial reality. Newspaper ads running from Kansas City to New York City offered pills as a, quote, remedy for a too rapid increase in family. Hormonal birth control didn't exist before 1950. So the pills in these ads, which date to the 1840s, are for ending pregnancies. And like today, medical providers stepped in when pills didn't work. In the 19th century, these providers were often midwives. Historians say midwives helped induce abortions on request, particularly before quickening, that's before feeling fetal movement. As the male-dominated American Medical Association curtailed midwife practices, legal restrictions on elective abortion entered state laws for the first time. The Comstock laws of the 1870s prohibited contraceptive shipments in the U.S. mail. This drove abortion services underground, where they existed for decades. But it was California's popular Republican governor, Ronald Reagan, who ushered in abortion legality by signing that state's therapeutic abortion bill in 1967. This led to a 6-year period of protest and debate over abortion access in all 50 states. The Supreme Court's 1973 Roe decision took debate away from the states, making abortion access a constitutional right. The 2022 Dobbs decision put abortion access back on state political agendas and perhaps on the minds of many Ohioans who thought this issue was settled. Now, as the Buckeye State heads to a public referendum on abortion access this November, those who are pregnant, doctors, activists, caregivers, and others wrestle anew with the complexities of an age-old reality, and Ohio doctors are among the most confused.
There's uncertainty, and providers cannot even keep up with the changes in the law, both in Ohio and other states. Are they going to risk being criminalized? Are they going to risk going to jail or losing their license to practice medicine? It's a scary, confusing time. It's distressing.
There are some familiar realities, though, namely the two sides most visible on the issue. Dr. Catherine Romanos works at this Dayton clinic, and as a family doctor, Romanos emphasizes she's about supporting life.
The body is complicated and horrible things happen, and there is no doctor in the world who could create a list of all of the things that might affect a person's life and health, which is why we just have to trust doctors and their patients.
Debbie Nieport protests outside Romanos' clinic. Nieport has a different take on what supporting life means.
When an egg and a sperm meet and fertilize, a fully alive, unique, existing human being is there, developing but exists from the moment of fertilization.
Ohio doctors and activists aren't the only sides in this conversation, though, and it looks like some of the public doesn't want to choose one side or the other. Data from the 2022 Survey on American Life shows a third of Americans say they're both pro-life and pro-choice. That includes 28% of Republicans. Our analysis of Ohioans in these data shows something too. 29% of state residents say they're on both political sides of abortion. That includes 28% of Republicans, 24% of Democrats, and 27% of Ohio women. How can overlap exist if we're so politically polarized on this issue? We might find an answer by looking at abortion from a more human perspective. So, all this week, we show you the lives and choices of everyday Ohioans. Brian Calfano, Spectrum News. People favoring abortion rights often talk about the issue as a choice, and the weight of this decision is at the heart of what everyday Ohioans experience, no matter their view on the issue.
I'm pro-life. I don't believe really in abortion at all, but I can't. People have to make their own decisions. That's just how I feel.
Shauna Dunn's perspective may sum up many of the feelings people across Ohio have on abortion. And, like other major life decisions, no two experiences are exact.
When I had my first abortion, I told myself I would never do it again. I never want to do it. I made myself feel awful about it.
I met Akina Gaines at a Dayton abortion facility just after her second abortion. Gaines didn't have the option of hiding, so instead she shared what she wants people to know.
I really feel like people should really think about how hard it would be for a 17 or even me, 19 years old, to raise a child, and then people complain if you're raising a child as a single mother alone.
Because of the physical realities involved, abortion impacts the young, both born and unborn, and that realization is what drives Ohio Right to Life staffer Elizabeth Marbach. But rather than talk about her organization's political views at her Columbus office, I asked Marbach about how she relates to others confronting the choice before them.
Yeah, one of my closest friends actually had an abortion, and she hid it from me for a while. It wasn't until years later that she actually opened up to me and told me what happened, and she told me about the pain and just the emotional suffering that she really dealt with.
A 2004 study published in the Journal of Psychosomatic Medicine backs up Marbach's point to a degree. Those who undergo an elective abortion often report feeling guilty, but the same study shows they may also feel relief. Much like the survey data in our last story about people being both pro-life and pro-choice, abortion brings up varied feelings. It's this reality that guides Shauna's work here at a caring place in Cincinnati. Like Akina, Shauna knows the ups and downs of those weeks following a pregnancy test.
I did get pregnant in high school and didn't tell anyone. My mom found out. So the decision was made that I would just make an adoption plan.
That was in 1974, before open adoptions. She probably would not see her son again. After marrying, Shauna had their couple's first child at 20. She was pregnant again 7 months later.
And my husband did not want any more children. And so I had an abortion. And then I got pregnant again. Again. He didn't want any more kids. So he took me himself to an abortion provider.
Shauna's husband demanded she get a third abortion soon after.
I said, no, I'm not.
It's these experiences that shape Shauna's non-judgmental approach at a caring place. The organization operates as a crisis pregnancy center, but one where abortion politics stay outside. It's a choice Dunn makes out of respect for the emotional journey people live through.
And it wasn't until actually I met my son that I placed for adoption that things started to really kind of swirl up inside of me.
Dunn's son found her when he was 19, the same age she was when she chose to put him up for adoption.
Because he asked me if I had considered abortion when I found out I was pregnant with him. And I said, yes, I did. And he just looked at me and said, I'm so glad you didn't.
The complexity in this story is that Akina represents some of what a younger Shauna experienced. And at least for now, Akina has chosen her path.
You know, I'm going to choose that path, and regardless of what anybody else thinks. And I feel like that's how it should be for everyone, especially like people who get raped or like all that stuff. Like, that's why I really feel like abortion should not go away, is because of people like that.
Whether abortion goes away legally in Ohio is an open question. More certain is that the choices the issue presents will stay both complex and emotional. Brian Calfano, Spectrum News. Behind me is Philadelphia's Independence Hall. For centuries, it's been a symbol of our national unity, but not in 1776. Back then, this building was ground zero for polarization across the colonies and the British Empire. And that has us thinking, what about the current state of our political strife? Is it really the worst it's ever been in this country? Or is it all a matter of historical perspective? We take a look.
We're joined tonight by our daybreak meteorologist, Elisa Rafa. Elisa, we had to get you a little earlier than some of our other guests.
Good morning.
Exactly.
A little bit past my bedtime, but it's
That's right. We appreciate you being here.
Yeah.
We've got a change of season.
Yeah.
Tell us about it. And you don't have to go to a yoga studio and wear a bunch of yoga clothes to unlock those benefits. You can do it right here in your home or in an office. Just give me 2 minutes and I'll show you. You know, Sarah, race and politics are certainly part of the news today, but these issues go back so far. They've been part of Missouri's story since the beginning. I reached out to RBX President Pat Blasey 4 times since late March to get his response to Johnson's claims. Neither Blasey nor any other RBX representative replied to my requests. All this week, we've brought you stories about talking politics across Ohio through the efforts of Braver Angels. Now, we want to show you some of what Braver Angels discussions look like. We asked student volunteers from the University of Cincinnati and their professor and Braver Angels member, Eugene Rutz, to discuss 4 hot topics using Braver Angels rules. Welcome back. It's President's Day, which means it's a fitting time to focus on the legacy of our nation's 33rd president and the only one to hail from Missouri. Of course, I'm referring to Harry Truman, and as you know, it's also Black History Month. But what you might not be aware of is just how influential President Truman was in advancing civil rights at a time when many in his party, and indeed many in the nation, resisted such change.
How busy are you this time of year?
Oh, I am busy. I'm really busy. In fact, I'm so busy, I'm going to start stealing some of Beth's terminology. I think we need to put cone of uncertainty into this entire discussion of this presidential race.
Oh my gosh.
This entire presidential race is in the cone of uncertainty.
He didn't thank former President Trump.
I think
We were waiting the
I
whole
think-
time, Curtis.
I think what you saw us reacting to was there was one name left off of that long list of thank yous.
And I kept saying he's going to do it.
And I kept going, it hasn't happened yet. And that is former President Donald Trump, who endorsed J.D. Vance. He does not win that primary without that
former
endorsement.
President Trump's endorsement.
Cincinnati City Hall has a storied past. Opened in 1893, the building was home to young bureaucrats like William Howard Taft, future President of the United States and Chief Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court. The building is as important for who works in it today as it is for its history. On this Black History Month, we look at the efforts of 3 African-American women who are leading the Queen City into a new era.
I often pinch myself and say, is this real for such a place like the city of Cincinnati?
Iris Rowley knows the historic progress she and others in City Hall represent. Rowley has driven her city's winding road to inclusion for years. Her longtime work with the Cincinnati Black United Front fostered the city's collaborative agreement between police and community. But this is not the Cincinnati Police of 2001, when civilians called out CPD violence against unarmed black men. Today, African-American women call the shots. There are at least 6 African-American women in key city government positions, an all-time high in Cincinnati. This includes Captain Danita Pettis. She leads CPD's District 2. And Captain Pettis is the department's highest-ranking African-American woman. For Pettis, diversifying the leadership ranks is common-sense government.
I've grown up in the communities and had some of the similar experiences that a person that is not from a diverse background, you don't even know what you don't know.
And what you may not know is that the person running Cincinnati on a daily basis, City Manager Cheryl Long, is the first African-American woman in that position. Councilwoman Mika Owens sees the power of the polls behind the big changes in who runs Cincinnati government.
If we're thinking that things are going to change systemically, then you've got to be able to elect people in office who are making decisions that are similar with what your values are.
And the captain agrees.
We can't change anything if we're never at the table.
After centuries of exclusion from the city's top political roles, Rowley still marvels at this moment.
Is it real that black women can be in leadership and that black women can be the face of a city that represents so many black people?
Judging by the numbers, the leadership shift is real. In 2022, Rowley accepted a city consulting position under Mayor Aftab Pureval. Meanwhile, Rowley's door at City Hall is open. She serves as a key community resource, and she seeks more change to combat inequality.
The disparities in good housing, clean housing, safe housing, in communities that have good schools with good numbers, with grocery stores and laundromats and cleaners, the things that you need in your community, there's a huge disparity.
Owen's work on council includes fostering safety and sustainability across the city. For her, Cincinnati's future challenges are more meetable when women pull the levers of power.
The fact that women lead in a different way, we lead with empathy and such compassion because we are the nucleus in communities.
And now the nucleus of Cincinnati city government.
For this singer, it's art over aces.
We know that art is our most common bond because art makes us human.
If the effects from adverse childhood experiences, or ACEs, tell us about human challenges, Kathy Wade's work in Cincinnati and beyond shows us human possibilities. The jazz singer turned entrepreneur turned child advocate runs several programs under the umbrella of her organization, Learning Through Art, and the Emmy Award-winning Books Alive series, featuring the indomitable Paige Turner, is at the heart of Wade's work. I spoke with Wade in the studio she uses for the series, under Paige's watchful eye, of course. If all this seems a bit too fun, given the intensity of adverse experiences children can encounter, you're missing the point. In combating ACEs, fun allows for self-expression.
We're able to take stories and help people identify, particularly children, to identify ways of expressing themselves.
And self-expression leads to a critical destination.
When you are traumatized, what we're trying to do when you look at ACEs is build a more resilient individual.
Trauma resilience is like a strong wind at your back, helping overcome the health challenges from toxic stress. But for Wade, what happens to the collective is just as important as what happens to the individual.
It's really important that when we look at our Arts Over ACEs Center that we are dealing with the entire family.
That's why, as fun as it is to watch Paige throw shade at Bruce Rico Wade, Kathy's brother, in the book's Alive series, each story comes with different activities for adults and kids to work through together.
And at the end of the day, it's not just that one individual, but collectively, that family becomes stronger and more resilient, which is so important when you're dealing with ACEs.
And behind Wade's impact is her recognition that ACEs trauma doesn't end once kids grow up. Wade's work shows you can combat ACEs while embracing art and humanity.
I can fly higher than an eagle. If you are the wind.
And art is that wind at your back when building resilience.